Settling into life in the UK as an expat can be tough, but it's not impossible. Hey guys, my name is Alana and I'm a Canadian, but I have been living here in the UK for the last 8 years. And at this point, the UK is no longer a foreign country to me, it's just home. And so today I'm going to share my personal 15 tips on how you can settle here in the UK and make it feel like home. Not right away, but eventually. For number one, let's start off with the simple act of saying yes. Now, it can be really overwhelming living in a foreign country, and sometimes you just want to hide away in your apartment. But saying yes to opportunities can really help you feel settled here. Maybe your new colleagues invite you out to the pub on a Friday night after work, or your work does a Christmas party or a Christmas do. And maybe in your gut, you're like, oh, I really don't want to go. It's going to be nerve-wracking. I'm going to be anxious. Like, I just want to hide away in my apartment. If you catch yourself in that scenario, take a second and just think, is it possible for me to say yes? And if you do feel like you could handle it, that you want to give it a try, say yes. I know we can't say yes to every opportunity and everything that crops up because you're just gonna burn yourself out. But there is definitely something about saying yes to opportunities that maybe you might shy away from normally, but by doing that thing or that event or that activity or that socialization or that hangout will make you feel settled in the UK. Number two, we have watch British TV. Now, this was quite surprising to me because I didn't think it would matter, but it actually does. I know it is so comforting to watch TV from home. Maybe your favorite TV show, or you're re-watching a show that you find really comforting. I totally get that, but there is something so important about watching British TV. At first, it didn't make a lot of sense. All of the pop culture references I didn't get, or jokes about pop culture stuff made no sense to me. Sometimes even the accents I couldn't even understand. But eventually, very, very slowly, it made sense and I understood. So I know this is a weird point, but it really did make a big difference. Watching British TV, just pick a show, maybe a game show, maybe a series, whatever. Watch what is on TV. It's shocking how much it helps. Even if you just have it on while you're making dinner or something, I was really surprised how much this helped me understand the UK. Number three, something that is extremely important to do literally anything here, is you need to open a British bank account. Now, it's not the simplest thing in the world, which is really annoying, but it's not impossible. And it's definitely one of those things that you really need to figure out sooner rather than later, because you really don't want to be trying to rely on a foreign bank account or maybe using your debit card from your home country and you're getting charged transaction fees because it's an international currency and all that mess. Now, I do have a video on my channel about how to open a bank account with a couple of suggestions. Certain banks make it easier than others, so that video will be linked in the description. Number four, you should explore your new home. Oftentimes when we are nervous or anxious or worried, it's about something that perhaps we've never experienced before, or we don't understand, or we don't know. You're kind of in new territory, and that can be really stressful. And that of course applies to when you move to a new country. You are in foreign waters and you don't know what to expect, you don't know where things are, and you don't know how to do things, and it's all just a bit much. So I found that taking the time to explore my new home just a little bit, here and there, it doesn't have to be anything major, just little bits and pieces, eventually it all makes sense. So oftentimes every weekend, or maybe after work, if I had enough energy, I would walk in a different direction from home. And maybe I'd only walk for 10 minutes and I'd come back, or maybe on the weekend I'd walk for 2 hours and I'd do a big loop and come back. But over time on these little trips, I was able to sort of map out my entire neighborhood in my head, which doesn't really seem that important, but it actually makes a really big difference. Even now, I've been living in the UK for 8 years. I've moved around the UK, and when I move to a new town or a new village, I will still do this exercise because I find it such a nice way to get some exercise be outside, get some fresh air, but also feel so much more connected to my local area. And it really starts to feel like home. So it doesn't need to be anything major. You don't need to be taking these giant like bus trips. If that feels a bit too much, start small, walk for 10 minutes in your area, walk for 20 minutes in your neighborhood. Just small pieces here and there will eventually make it so much easier to settle into this new life. Number 5, we have, if you're not sure, ask. I always get really embarrassed when I have to ask somebody to repeat themselves, or I have to ask a question, or I don't know what they're saying. It's just embarrassing. But sometimes you just gotta. What I have found living here in the UK for the last 8 years is a lot of the times British people just assume that you know. But until you actually do that thing, you don't. So for instance, when I registered for my GP or my doctor, the receptionist woman just kind of assumed that I knew what I was doing. But I've never done that before, so how would I know? So I was really embarrassed, but I asked her so many questions. How do I register a repeat prescription? Do I give the little slip to her? Do I take it to a pharmacy? Do I call it in, or do you have to have an appointment? Can I do it online? When I submit the refill, do I have to wait long? Like, when will I know when it's ready? So many questions. But until you do the thing, you won't know. So if you find yourself in a situation where you don't know what's going on, you don't understand, you need someone to repeat what they said, maybe you didn't even like physically hear what they said, just ask. It's embarrassing and it's something that you just have to get over. Number 6, you'll want to register with a GP. So GP is the same thing as a doctor in Canada. You know, you register at a local doctor's office. Here in the UK, we call them GPs, a general practitioner. But it's the same idea. I would also include a dentist in this point, maybe less important, but something to keep on your radar. You'll want to register for a dentist. Those are 2 separate offices, they're separate services. So you'll have to register for both of them separately. But I will say, get settled, figure out where you're gonna live, figure out where you're gonna work, and then find a GP around that. You don't want to apply for a GP once you get here and then realize that you're moving or you're going to live in a different area, and actually getting to that GP will be a nightmare. So just wait until you're a little bit more settled, you're a little bit more permanent, you have a home, you have a job, and then register for a GP. If you have any questions, I have a whole video about how to register for your first GP on my channel, so I'll put a link in the description. It's definitely helpful to register for a GP before you need one, so when you do need one, you can just immediately go to them without having to do all the registration stuff first. Number 7, find your favorite British tea. This is probably not going to change your life. It's certainly not as important as getting a bank account, but it is something that feels very cozy. Now, I never drank tea in Canada, and I'm still more of a coffee drinker, if I'm gonna be honest, but I definitely drink way more tea here in England. And there is something that is very cozy, very comforting, and it feels very British. And it's definitely really fun trying new flavors, whether it's just like supermarket stuff, maybe you try some fancy stuff. You've got tea bags versus loose leaf tea. Try all of it. I love doing it. It's so much fun. I would say my personal favorite, my personal everyday tea would be Yorkshire, just regular tea bags, or Yorkshire decaf if I'm having it before bed. But I did find some really fancy loose leaf tea from a local tea house, which is like when I want to feel a little bit special. I got a vanilla black tea, which is so good. Again, it's not going to change your life here in the UK, but it does make me feel kind of like more connected to my area. And with that, number 8, we have to talk about afternoon tea. Now, realistically, this is not as important or as helpful as some of these other useful tips, but there is something about getting afternoon tea that it makes my soul happy, which is so cringy to say out loud, but that is how I feel. There is something so wholesome and wonderful and lovely and British about going for afternoon tea. So my recommendation would be to try some local tea houses to you. Maybe you've got one, maybe you've got more than one, or go to a nearby town or city and just have afternoon tea. I know this isn't gonna like change your life, but there is something so wholesome and lovely about even having the opportunity to do it. Sometimes living in the UK is so stressful and overwhelming, you forget how much of a privilege it is. And I find these types of things, like going for afternoon tea, reminds me how fun and exciting and wholesome and lovely and sweet it is to live in the UK. Number 9, I would highly recommend you navigate public transportation. It's likely that you won't be driving in the UK right away. At least that's what happened for me. I relied on public transportation for about 2.5 years before I started driving here. So for those 2.5 years, the only way I was getting around was with public transportation. So the sooner you can figure it out, the better off you'll be. And now on the flip side, I have sold my car, so I no longer have a vehicle and I'm relying on public transport once again. It can be really overwhelming at first, especially as a Canadian. I never took public transport in Canada. I drove everywhere. You just have to. So I didn't know how the buses worked, which is really embarrassing saying that out loud, but that was my reality. So figuring out how to buy a bus ticket, figuring out how to, like, do you wave at the bus to get it pulled over? How do you know when to get off? Like, does the driver stop at every stop, or do you have to like ring a bell, or like, how does it work? I had no idea. So yes, I asked for help. I asked questions. I watched YouTube videos. I Googled it to figure out what to do. But really, with practice, you'll figure it out. But this is something I wouldn't put off. Like, don't put it on the back burner, because the sooner you can figure out how your local trains or your buses or the London Underground works, the better you'll be. You'll be so much more connected to your nearby area, your town, your city, your village, and it just feels a lot more at home and a lot less isolating. For number 10, we have visit your local and try a new drink. Even if you are not a big drinker, pubs are a real community hub, and they can be a really welcoming and cozy environment. In Canada, in the US, oftentimes you'll compare it to a bar, but that is really not necessarily the vibe here for a British pub. A lot of them can be very cozy, very welcoming, very much like a community hangout space. Even if you don't want to drink, you can very well go to a local pub and have like a Diet Coke, but there is something about visiting your local pub and getting to know it, because it can be really nice to go in and see familiar faces, or maybe the bar staff remember you and remember your drink. It just makes you feel a lot more, part of the community. Not all pubs are the same. You'll definitely have ones that are a bit more rough than others, but there's definitely something to be said about visiting the ones local to you in your area and getting to know them. Number 11, try something new every day, or at least close to every day. As you learn about what it is to live in the UK, what it's really like, you learn about British culture. As you learn, bit by bit, by trying new things, taste tests, or exploring, or different opportunities or experiences, it becomes so much more normal. It's not overwhelming anymore, because you get it, because you've lived it and you've done it. So if you can do it every day, awesome. If you can do it close to every day, great. Just try new things, because largely a lot of us move abroad because you want to experience new things. You want to get out of your comfort zone and try that new stuff. And sometimes the red tape and the admin of daily life kind of gets in the way. But when you can, just take a second, remember you're living in the UK, how exciting, and make a point to try something new. Because sometimes it is tough. If you've worked, a long day, maybe your commute is really long, maybe your bus gets canceled, so it's even longer. Sometimes that regular day-to-day dramas kind of gets in the way, and you kind of forget that you're living abroad because you're just living. Just take a second, remember that you're here, and maybe try something new. Maybe on the way home from work, stop in at a corner shop and buy a drink that you've never seen, or a snack, or watch a new TV show that you don't know what it is, some British stuff on TV. Just take the time and the effort to try those new things. However, with trying new things, you should also. Number 12, we have surround yourself with familiar things. Now this one you gotta be a little bit careful with because there's sort of a balancing act. You should surround yourself with things that make you feel at home, remind you of your loved ones or your family and that kind of stuff, but also you don't want to be so overrun with those things that you feel homesick and just like overwhelmed and you don't fully settle into British life. Everybody's different. You need to find your balance between having new things, having British things, and having things that remind you of home. You haven't failed as an expat if you have things that remind you of home, maybe food or drink or photos, or you keep traditions alive. Like those types of things are part of you, and that's not a failure if you still have those things or do those things, as long as you don't shut yourself off from British life. Because you'll never feel really at peace or settled in the UK if you never open yourself up to the British things, because that's, you know, why you're here. Number 13, a great way to feel settled is to join local clubs or teams. Now this could be a sport thing. I'm not really sporty, so I kind of miss out on this element, but it could be a football team, rugby, cricket, any kind of sport you like. Or this could be something like you join a pub quiz team or you join a local book club. You know, the teams, the clubs, whatever it may be, whatever interest you have, maybe like a board game group or like a Dungeons and Dragons group, you know, it literally doesn't matter. But the more you can get involved in that kind of stuff, the more this place feels like home. So I would definitely recommend check your local area. The easiest way is probably to just Google, or if a lot of local towns and villages and cities and things will have like a Facebook group, which is a separate story entirely. It's very funny in there usually, but that is a great resource to ask about clubs or teams, or you can see what people are posting about. Maybe there's a local pub quiz night that gets posted in the Facebook group. It's a great resource to find out what's going on near you. And don't be afraid to experiment. Just because you go to a sport team, like sign up and you realize it's not for you, you tried. Try something else, because you won't know until you try. Number 14, we have get involved in local festivals. So there are loads of different festivals or parades or community events that local towns and villages and cities put on every year. So wherever you end up in the UK, it's highly likely that your area will have something, and definitely get involved. You might even want to volunteer, like to help them, but at the very least, go to the event, go to the parade, go to the festival and see what it's like. There are some really funny and historical festivals around the UK. There's one up north, I can't remember what they call it, but it's a bed race. It might just be the bed race, and they literally will get into teams. You put on fancy dress, like you dress up, and you race around the town with a bed. Hilarious. Or there's bog snorkeling, or there's like nettle eating contests. There's loads of really fun stuff, a lot of it very historical, and it definitely helps to get involved. At the very least, I know you'll have a bonfire night somewhere close to you. So every November 5th, they have a big bonfire or fireworks or some sort of festival community thing happening. Loads of even small villages will have something for bonfire night. So even if you don't live in a big city, there will be stuff local to you. Number 15, stay positive even when it's tough. I try to be very honest. Sometimes living in the UK is tough. Sometimes just being an adult is tough. Sometimes, you know, working a 9-to-5 job that you don't really like, paying taxes, doing chores, cleaning your house, it can be a bit much sometimes. And then of course, with the added bonus of doing all of that in a foreign country, it can be a lot. But honestly, if you can remain positive, even through the crappy times, because there will be crappy times, that's just part of being alive. If you can remain positive, it really does make a difference. If you can kind of like laugh at the situation you find yourself in, you know, like I think of myself working a really long day, and then my bus was canceled, and then it started raining, and there's no bus shelter at this particular bus stop, and you just kind of stand there in the cold and the rain, and you just kind of have to laugh because it really does make things better. Settling to life in the UK can be stressful, and there's a lot of stuff going on, but it is totally possible. Take a deep breath. you're gonna do just fine. If you have any questions, please leave a comment down below. Definitely check out this one. I talk about the honest reality of living in the UK and I share my own pros and cons. But until then, I'll see you in the next one.